welcome to this week's episode of Career Avenue. Today we're going to talk to a young man whose educational journey did not go as expected, since he had a change of heart. Who are we talking about?
My name is Alphonce Juma. I'm the founder of Oracom Group. We are running 9 companies in one, and it's been a very interesting thing.
Give us your education background.
I started schooling in a school called Kawundi Primary School. That's in Siaya County, and a place called Rarieda. So Kawundi is a place called Uyoma. So there is where I did my primary school, and then I went to Maranda High School. So in Maranda, I finished in 2004, and then I joined Moi University. So in Moi University, I did information. Actually, I was invited for, the course was Bachelor of Science General. So it's a course that I didn't understand, of course, just coming from the village. So I had to request for a transfer, of which I was privileged to be transferred from Chepkoilel campus, and then I went to Moi University, now the main campus, and there is where I did now information science.
During this time, did you experience any particular event, either financially, academically, spiritually? My
Schooling, especially at the earlier years, was really hectic. Coming from a background of, my parents were peasant farmers. My mother was a primary school teacher, and I must really congratulate her because she really did a lot.
My name is Filgona Orango, Mr. Alphonse's mother. Alphonse was the 7th born in 9 children. When he was young, he was a polite boy. He was always alone thinking. He loved Jesus Christ. He became born again when he was in standard 3. He was an obedient child. He never disobeyed me. Anytime I told him to do something, he never argued. He was only to do it. That is how we grew up with him. Right now, after completing university, he came to Nairobi here. When he was coming, there was a brother of his. When he came to Nairobi, he used to tell me they have started something here, and they only have a small room. And then later on, they went to something estate called Kilaleshwa Estate, and then they were in a house, in a room. The house was full of equipments. This wires, what. This time I find when he's so successful, I was amazed in this office where I am now. When I came here, I wonder, is this really the office of Alphonse? How did he manage this?
My mom is my greatest shuja. Right now she's an old mama. And I just remember the day when she was in school, and the teacher insisted, that's the principal of Maranda High School, just said that, Mama, you're going with your son. Sad to say is when I remember the day I was planning for the KCP, like the D-Day for the KCP examinations. During that period, it happened that my late father became unwell, and to be particular, actually my father became mad. So it was really hectic for me. I was the only son preparing for examinations, and then the only person I saw as my parent was just became a mad person. I remember the day when I was just going to, when the vehicles move with the papers when they are going to school. On that D-Day, I was still at home. Why? Because my father insisted that he actually said it's X, like I can't do the examination. So that was really hectic. When I just joined Form 1 at Maranda High School, it happened that my dad passed. That was in 2001. Yeah, and it was it was so hectic for me. I knew like that's the time when everything ended. Yeah, and then now it means my mother had to educate me alone. And it was so hectic. Like all of my time, most of it I was in school and then I go home. But what I did next is when I went to Moi University and joined, I said, there is no fee that I knew. So it was either help that I had to go for, or I had to look for ways in which I would generate money for my own self. Because from back in the background, we were a family of 9. And my mother supporting us all was very difficult, and it was actually impossible. So all I did then is I started doing some small businesses. I was actually doing printing and photocopying in the university, and that's how I raised my all the money that I was using in the university, including my school fees.
Were there any turning points and breakthroughs during your education that changed your choices in your education journey?
When I was at Maranda, from my first year 1, year 2, and year 3, I'm somebody who wasn't performing. Yeah, but it also happened that I was so much in the CU. So people were looking at it like I'm the guy who spends all my time praying. I'm this guy. I was also in volleyball. So I'm also this guy who spends a lot of time with the games. So like in Form 3, as we did the examination that was making us now move to Form 4, I was among the last students. So by that time, myself, like everyone knew at Maranda that mine was just like I could not make it. So there was a time now I was among the last 10 and we were sent home, and I came back with my sister, and she was asked like, this seemed to be a bright student according to the marks he came with, but what has happened? So my sister was like, there's nothing. But at that point, it was my key turning point. I started becoming very, very serious with academics. When the results came, everyone was surprised in Maranda. Everyone was surprised. Yeah, so I was just joining Moi University, a new place, and I don't know how it happened, but throughout my time, every town I would go to was my first time. So finding myself in Moi University, the first time for me, and then joining a course, meeting people, it was very, very interesting and also very challenging, because I had challenges with money especially, and how to support myself. I think when I realized that there's nothing else, I don't have anyone else to look at who was able to like help me with money and things like that, then I just said I have to make my own self-determination. But I must say that transition was to me, it was just like a dream, because I didn't even know that I would find a chance to be at the university.
What are you involved in currently?
Currently, we built something very interesting. I've built a company, and it's something that I really hold it dear in my life, because when I left campus and came to Nairobi, I made a decision that I wanted to start my own company, to be an entrepreneur. So what I did then is I looked for work before, so that I could get some kind of experience. Yeah, and to be frank with you, I was employed in 1 year alone, like I was employed in 6 companies. So I would go into one, learn, and then leave. And then I set up this company. So currently we are doing website development. We have done an e-commerce platform called My Big Order, which was an award. We won some award at KCB Lansden last year. And we've also built a network of young people, youths, where we have a dream of starting up Mavijana hubs, or hubs for youths, in each of the 47 counties in Kenya.
What motivated you to what you're doing right now?
What motivated me was I really wanted to do something. I've always wanted to challenge myself. Yeah, challenging myself in the fact that, when there is nothing else to look at, then you're like that orphan. When you're an orphan, every day you have to be begging for food if you're an orphan. Yeah, so for me, knowing that in the background there was nothing else, it's just me, that really motivated me. And also the fact that when I ventured into IT, I found that field very interesting because of innovations and research. Yeah, so everything was changing for me. Yeah, so that made me like very motivated to the fact that, like even right now, I wake up very early. So whenever a day starts on any given day, I have to cover like 2 days. So I wake up very early. By the time people are reporting to work, I've already covered an extra day. And that's one of the things behind the success of this company.
What are you involved in currently?
Currently, we are doing a number of stuff. I decided after setting up Oracom and having, I think right now we are 47 full-time staff. I thought about how else I would create an impact in the society. So currently, next month, I'm going to be at the yearly program. That's for a whole month of study, and what we are going to be taught is how to create the same impact, like the impact we've already had here. How else can we multiply or have that impact back in the village or in the societies where we come from?
You've heard of the new system of education the Ministry of Education has introduced. How do you think this will help the youth?
I think for me that system is very interesting, because in my other years, when I saw about what they are doing currently, I just remembered about there's a subject we had called art, craft, and music. Yeah, so it's a very interesting thing, because we could, come up with the puppets and then we play with them. And my mom was the home science teacher, so we were taught how to wash the sufurias, and it was a very interesting life. I know most of the students for that period when that was not in, we ended up having pupils who did not have like the hands-on. So having to see what's happening, like they are taught on real life things. For me, and then I look at my journey, how I had that experience, and then it's taught me to be able to do certain things myself. For me, I think this is a very interesting thing. And you know what? We've started a program called CBC Takayo. So we just want to learn. Of course, we've seen what they are doing with CBC. Some of them are not very, very interesting. As people who are entrepreneurs, we feel that still other things can be done better. Like if you look at the way other countries like China, they implement such kind of programs where people use technology, it's real time. At times it can be better than the way we do it. So we started this program so that we can create some kind of a bridge, so that people, especially we can bring in what happens in the other countries and then we bring it here. So at the end of it, CBC won't just be an exercise of them sweeping, for example. It will be something that is more innovative and something that they can relate with.
What piece of advice would you give the young people as they do what they are doing to make a greater future in life?
These young people, I can tell them to work very hard. The main reason is because time is really running, like currently I see it. The other thing I can tell them is to always save a lot. I think that has made that's the reason behind the success of this company. Just working and saving. The advantage is once you save, it means you're creating your own kind of capital. Yeah, like myself, I didn't start with a capital, but I've created a culture of saving, getting into circles, saving some money, and then I'm able to do business differently. The other thing I can urge also young people is to learn to get opportunities that are available over the internet. Actually, I call it to be digitally fit. They really need to understand what opportunities are there on the internet. So things like how do they start branding themselves as individuals, or even their companies if they have decided to start their own companies. So what do they need? Do they need a domain? Do they need a website, of course? What do they need to do with the social media? A very big tool that is already available for everyone. So everyone else needs to look for ways in which they can make themselves better. I also want to encourage the young people these days, like for the people I've worked with within the 10 years in my company here, you find a young person, he comes to the company, then he thinks like this is already, like he thinks he can just like leave the company and go somewhere else and still make it. Life is never that easy. They really need to spend time, learn. Yeah, before even they think about coming up with their companies. And it's always very nice. I always urge young people, if you can, if you feel you have the guts, then start your company. But starting your company as well comes with a lot of responsibility. It's so big that even myself at times I feel like I want to resign, because like right now, somebody comes to you, I'm not coming to work, it's A, B, C, D. It's a lot of work. Yeah, but I think it's also a time that people really need to create networking platforms so that you're able to learn from those who are already making it. Yeah, you're able to learn from mistakes. You can imagine at my level here, I also make business mistakes. So what happens? Somebody else doesn't need to go through that mistake simply because I went through it. So young people need to look for programs and networking clubs where they're able to speak with the others, get to know how do you file your returns, how do you handle this, how do you keep your staff, how do you keep your team motivated and things like that. And that then becomes very important to their lives.
Any last word?
My last word is to that person in the village right now who is going through what I went through. That person who is already like no fees, no school fees, poverty, people have died and there's nothing else, diseases and things like that, this is the time they really need not to give up. They need to look ahead, and of course God is always very faithful to us, so that they're able to look at what they're able to do within the society, and then they're able to multiply it and make their lives better. But I think it's also a time that people really need to create networking platforms so that you're able to learn from those who are already making it. Yeah, you're able to learn from mistakes. You can imagine at my level here, I also make business mistakes. So what happens? Somebody else doesn't need to go through that mistake simply because I went through it. So young people need to look for programs and networking clubs where they're able to speak with the others, get to know how do you file your returns, how do you handle this, how do you keep your staff, how do you keep your team motivated and things like that. And that then becomes very important to their lives.
Thank you, Mr. Alphonce, for making time for this interview. Alphonce is a visionary who sees the positive side of every story, and this is a very important aspect in life. Until next time, I've been your host, Wanjiru Kahama.